I'm Raymond. You're watching RPadTV, and today's show is all about Time Bandits on Apple TV Plus. Time Bandits is a reimagining of the 1981 movie by Michael Palin and Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame, and it's one of the most influential movies for nerds of that age. So I was surprised to learn that it was going to be a series 40 something years later. With me today is Carlos from Revisiting the Mania. What's up, Carlos?
Hey, what's going on, Raymond? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by in your virtual arcade. Love the background.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into Time Bandits, I want to know what's going on Revisiting the Mania.
Well, just this past Saturday, we put out our recent episode where we revisited WrestleMania 31.
Aha.
This was one of the first WrestleManias that didn't have like one of those taglines.
Oh.
So this I had to make up my own, and everyone calls it the greatest heist in the century, or the biggest heist in the century. So that's the one I put in there.
They should have had like choose your own tagline.
Yeah, right.
Like that. But yeah, if you want to check out what's going on with Carlos's podcast, there is the link below, but there's also a direct link for your convenience in the video description. As always, we're going to kick things off with a thread-size review of Time Bandits. Now, Carlos, why don't you take this one first? What did you say about the show?
I said that Time Bandits is a fun show. If you are a fan of the movie, you should definitely check out the series. The cast plays off each other very well, and 40 years in technology advancement really helped with this reimagining of the movie.
Very cool. Now, what did I say? I said, as a fan of the original movie, Lisa Kudrow and Jemaine Clement, I was really looking forward to Time Bandits on Apple TV. The show delighted and surprised me. Can't wait for a second season. Yes. So, as I mentioned, this was one of my favorite movies as a kid. I remember watching it on cable several times with my dad. It was my first experience with British humor, which I prefer in general to American humor. I'm a big Monty Python guy. Love all those movies. I love comedians like Eddie Izzard. I've been told I'm an honorary Brit from a British person, so I don't know what that counts for. But yeah, I really loved the movie. It was really imaginative, very different from the movies I was used to. I knew the comedy was different. At that age, I didn't really understand what the differences were between American and British humor. So this was really new and exciting to me. And it's a movie I've watched time and time again over the decades, I guess. Now, if I remember correctly, you watched the movie after the series, is that right?
Well, I watched it just so I can start my memory and try to
refresher kind of deal.
Yeah, and also compare to what they did in the show and what they had to work with the movie. Because I watched this movie right after I had watched, like, I'm not sure if they had this in New York, which they probably did, but eventually when movies would go into like $5 shows or something, $5 shows and things like that. So my first experience with time travel movies were like, I got to watch Back to the Future 2 and 3. I didn't watch the first one. I went right straight to 2 and 3 back to back for $5 or in one summer. So that jump started my whole thing with time and physics and things like that. So, what is a like 9-10-year-old kid to do when they try to rent NES games and they're not there at the video store? You try to just find a movie to entertain yourself. And I'm like, well, I just watched Back to the Future. I already watched Back to the Future 1. Let me find this movie that says Time Bandits in it. And so I took a chance on it, and like I didn't really grasp it because it wasn't more of a like mainstream explanation of how they were traveling. And then I'm like, why is James Bond in here? And why does he have this weird toupee? And then I was like, why is Mona from Who's the Boss in this movie?
That's right. She was married to that ogre dude.
Was she? I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So but mostly through the movie, I did enjoy it. But the thing that I enjoyed the most were the bandits.
Yeah.
Those were the guys that made the movie more watchable for me as I came back like until I had to return the tape.
And it's one of those movies when we were kids, it was always cool to watch when the kid was the hero. So Kevin in that movie, another movie like that is for me was Goonies, where like the kids get to go on the adventure and do all the cool stuff. That's another reason why I loved it. But yeah, it was just great. I was a history nerd later on, especially with Greek mythology. So it was cool to see James Bond as Agamemnon.
I still can't like
Well, they say it with their British accent.
yeah,
It's like, this is called
Agamon or something
Agamemnon.
like that.
Yeah.
I like it's Ganon. It's Ganon. That's one of Ganon's names, right?
Yeah.
Aganim or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Right. He had a weird alter ego
Yeah.
there. So we both were fans of the movie. Now, when you first learned about the series, what was your reaction to it? What drew you to it?
Well, I didn't know that they were even thinking about this. Like, usually you get like little like whispers or like rumors or little headlines that I would see from Variety or something like that. And I hadn't heard anything of it. You posted the link, and then I started doing the research, and then I finally watched the trailer, and the trailer's what really won me over because I was just like, Lisa Kudrow's and like right in the beginning, the music was catchy,
Yeah.
and it just comparing that trailer to what you see back 43 years in the past when you if you watch that movie that's made in 1981,
Yeah.
it's different, but it's not like, oh my god, I don't want to watch this different. So
It's funny that you mentioned that because I don't know how much they spent on marketing, but when I posted the link to the trailer, a lot of my friends didn't know about it, and they were total nerds for the movie. So I was surprised they didn't hear about it. But also, I didn't hear about it until that day either. I'm like, oh, there's a
yeah.
Time Bandits series. How about that?
And
So
you normally get something like from Apple, like
yeah,
even like the sizzle reels of what's coming in the next season. Like right now, if you're watching like other shows like Sunny
right.
or
Bad Monkey.
the Bad Monkey and the other one, I forget the name of the series, but it's just about the Mexican police that hired
Right.
this squad of women as a PR thing, and they're actually off trying to solve murders. But so you get that sizzle reel, so you see things in the future. And I never seen a sizzle reel that included the Time Bandits. I seen everything else that was coming, like
Yeah.
Sunny and Bad Monkey and the movies and things like that, but nothing about this show.
I wonder why that was. Why did they keep it under the radar?
Yeah,
But
especially with Taika, with TD
yeah,
producing, and he had just won that Emmy for Reservation Dogs the last season and things like that. So you're like, figure you might want to just like push that, be like, hey, from the producer of this show and blah blah blah.
right. Although some people are having Taika overload, which may count against it. I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, my reaction was similar in that I was surprised that there was a series, but I was also a little bit scared because I hold the movie in such high regard. And I'm like, oh, don't mess this up, guys. But to my delight, they did not. Of course, it's different because you have a how many episodes? Is it 10
And
episode? 10 episode series versus, a standard 90-ish minute movie. So they got to do a lot of different things. Speaking of which, one of my favorite things is that it almost reminded me of, like those CW superhero shows we like,
mhm,
Flash and Arrow. There's always a villain of the week. In Time Bandits, there was a time period of the week.
right.
So I appreciate that they got to spend more time in each individual time period, whereas in the movie, it was only 10 minutes maybe for each one.
Yeah. I
And so
think yeah, I think the Greek one was in the movies where
that
they
was,
spent the most time.
yeah,
Everything else was just like a few minutes there. But yeah, I totally agree. That's one of the things that I did like. It kind of reminded me. Did you watch the Sliders TV show on Fox
I did not.
with Jerry O'Connell? Is that the one? was married to
Rebecca Romaine,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so he was this guy who invented this portal, kind of like a portal gun, like to give you something similar. So, but you would slide into an adjoining universe.
Ah,
So things would be different, like the gate would be colored like something different, or like the only like he like Quantum Leap. I'm sure you watch Quantum Leap, but Sam Beckett never makes it home.
right.
But in the
It's one of
first
the
episode,
saddest endings of the show ever. I'm like, what? That sucks.
spoiler alert for anyone who's
Yes.
wanted to watch Quantum Leap and you've never watched it. Yes, unfortunately that happens. But so in the first episode, he goes and he saves his brother's life, and then he thinks he's like sliding, because that's what they call it, sliding back into his original timeline, and he notices that his squeaky gate, that normally squeaking, is not squeaking anymore. And then
Right.
it's butterfly effect time. Whatever he fixed just fucked up everything else.
Right.
So he just going around and trying to fix it and trying to find his real home, because now he realizes that he's not in his real home.
So another thing that drew me to the show, or that I really enjoyed, was Lisa Kudrow, because so many people know her from Friends,
Mm-hmm.
but I think she's a really underrated actor because people automatically think Phoebe when they see her, but she's capable of so much more. She has had a lot of other good roles that
Mm-hmm.
are often underlooked because the specter of Phoebe is so large. So I was glad she got a chance to, show people another aspect of her talent. She does Phoebe-ish humor here, but
Yes.
in terms of acting, I think she delivered the most. I mean, I loved her arc. I loved her emotional development in the show. I think she knocked it out of the park. What other aspects of the show did you enjoy?
Well, I did like you mentioned, acting by Lisa Kudrow, but I also liked the actor, which who plays Kevin, which is Kal-El.
Coolest parents ever. So yes,
So yeah, I mean, no. The first move, like in the movie, I really did not like Kevin.
really.
No, he just
Oh,
seemed like annoying to me. Like the only thing I mentioned to you, the only thing I liked is that there was the little Time Bandits and 007 and Mona. But
right.
everything else, I was like with the kid, I was just annoyed with him. He always was saying, "I want to go back home," and I'm like, "What? These guys are trying to go from time to time. Let's steal things. What do you mean you want to go home? They're treating you better than your parents ever did."
Maybe, do you think maybe that's a sign of our respective ages at that time, where when we watch the movie, that's like the kind of kid where we'd want to pick on him and stuff. Now that we're older, we kind of appreciate, hey, he's a good little history nerd that
Yeah, I think
studies.
so. Was I look at that kid, and my son actually enjoyed watching this with us. Because I was watching it with
Yes,
my wife, and he ended up saying that he just called it the Kevin Show, and he's like, "Can I watch the Kevin Show?" Oh my God, why are they doing that to Kevin? Why are they being so mean to him?
maybe
So
times have changed.
maybe,
When we were growing up, comics were not cool,
yeah.
and now MCU is like everything now.
And they're like, "How do you know so much? How do you think something's gonna happen?" And you're like, "Well, I have like all these years of reading comic books." So
Now, I'm glad you brought up your son because that was one of the things that surprised me about the general tone of the show. I was expecting it to be more adultish in nature, appealing to the people that are older now that know the movie, and it would be geared towards that,
mhm.
maybe have a little more violence and more mature humor. But this is very much a family show, and I did not expect that at all. I think that's wonderful. I kind of when I'm gonna see my nephew and niece in a few weeks, and I hope they like it. I'm gonna force them to watch an episode and hope they get into it. But I was not expecting a family show out of this. What surprised you about Time Bandits?
What's well, the first thing, which is the obvious thing, is that they gave us the bandits as regular sized people
Right.
and not as the little people that they start off the movie with. And so that was like something I didn't think was gonna happen. Like I had seen, like we mentioned, we seen the trailer, but I thought there would be something like they met these people later on, and it turns out that it's kind of like the other way around. We get the little people towards the end of the show,
Right, right.
in the background. So that's cool.
I was
And
expecting the same. I thought they would have a much larger part in the series, but it seems like that's for next season,
yeah,
hopefully.
I think that's where that's going, and like I'm looking forward to it because I'm hoping that this helps get the word, and we just keep going around and be like, hey, go see Time Bandits. It's a very good show. But the other thing I enjoyed is Saf. Like the movie didn't have a sister,
Right,
so
right,
I was glad that they like. At first, I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, do you really need it? And I think in a way, it kind of gives it like something for Kevin to get back to because he has, I guess, spoiler alert, he loses his parents at one
right.
point. So now he has the only one thing that he has to go back to, even though his like just like his parents, Saf also picks on him. So
Right.
it's kind of like, why do you want to go back to that? But we all always like when we're in unfamiliar things or we're somewhere where we don't feel safe, we always want to look back to our family. So I understand storyline wise why that's necessary, and I guess they really couldn't find any way to make the parents any type of uh, MacGuffin for him besides trying to save him.
Right. But
So
I also like that Saffron broadened the appeal for young girls to watch. So, and also like the dynamic where the show starts where she's the younger sister, but because of time travel shenanigans and her getting stuck in a place I'll talk about later,
yeah.
she ends up as the older sister later. So that
And
that was a clever dynamic. I also like how they modernized the parents in the movie. They were so happy with new appliances and stuff like that.
uh,
Whereas in the series, the parents are all on their phones and watching like stupid television
uh,
shows instead of, parenting. So in both cases, he's kind of somewhat neglected child, but
yeah,
they really modernize it in a great way.
neglected, and they're like, just shut up and go away because they're like, Kevin, just be quiet up there. We're trying to watch our show.
That's right. Yeah.
And then in the first episode, when they're like the bandits, and like the second time, I think the bandits come and they're like, Kevin, are you playing video games?
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, yes.
Yeah, and there he's like, wait, we didn't buy him anything.
Yes. Another thing that surprised me, we talked about Taika Waititi before, and after Lisa Kudrow, he's probably the second most famous person involved with the show. So I was expecting more from him. In a way, I'm glad we didn't get more of him. A lot of people are burned out by his acting, but I'm a bigger fan of Jemaine Clement.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys have worked together on What We Do in the Shadows and stuff like that. Some people know Jemaine from Flight of the Conchords. Out of the two, he's the one I like better. I just think he's hilarious. Even in that stupid Dinner for Schmucks movie, he cracked me up in
Who
that
was he
movie.
in that one?
He was the guy that he thought his girlfriend was sleeping with, like her. In the,
Oh, the pup lord. Was it the puppet?
no, he was wasn't he like some
No,
fashion?
the girlfriend was like the puppet. No.
No, no, no.
Oh, he wasn't the schmuck. He was
No,
actually
no.
someone.
Yeah, he was like the important
Okay.
guy that he
Okay.
thought he was losing his girl to.
Okay.
And yeah, I just think that guy's hilarious. I also like the New Zealand sense of humor too. They get a little weird and a little freaky.
Yeah.
But check out Jemaine Clement's movies if you want more of that. I don't know, off-center humor. I think he's hilarious. Now, for before we get into our next point, I want to talk about our favorite characters, favorite episodes, and settings later. But I have a special message that I'll just play it. We'll check it out. Hey guys, it's Raymond. Thanks again for watching RPad TV. I really, really appreciate it. Now, a lot of viewers have asked me, Raymond, why does your skin look so incredible on camera? My secret? Papatui Restoring Facial Moisturizer. If you're not familiar with Papatui, it's a men's care company founded by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. The company offers soaps, body washes, shampoos, facial moisturizers, and facial cleansers. All are backed by let me see, what was it here? Result-focused formulations backed by science. I mean, it's science, so you can't argue with the results. And speaking of which, 98% of the men that have used this product have reported that their skin feels hydrated and nourished. The other 2%, they're probably liars and thieves and thugs and AEW fans, stuff like that. So you don't want to listen to those people. You want to listen to the 98% of the men that know what they're talking about. Hey, if it's good enough for me and it's good enough for The Rock, it's definitely good enough for you. So check out Papatui Restoring Facial Moisturizer, available at Target stores across America. Yes.
Wow,
Thank you for
Papatui.
Thank you for watching that completely fake ad read. I am in no way affiliated with Papatui or Target, but I just wanted to do something goofy. Now, I wanted to talk about the cast of characters in Time Bandits, because there's an interesting assortment of never-do-wells that used to work for the Supreme Being, but have gone rogue.
Yeah.
Carlos, out of the group, I mean, I love them all personally, but
Yeah.
a few stood out for me. Who stood out for you, Carlos?
Well, since I already mentioned Kevin and Penelope,
Right.
the other ones I like the rapport that you get from Widget, who's
Right.
trying to understand the map, and Alto.
Yes, the actor.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, and we're spoiling everything for you, all of the characters except for Kevin are varying degrees of stupid. So they're all kind of fuck ups, basically.
But they all have their own little specialties. Like,
yeah, for sure.
So they all like mesh together to go ahead and like. I mean, they don't ever get a heist right. Spoiler alert. But it's kind of like, kind of like Ocean's 11, only kind of not successful.
I could go with that analogy. I loved Biddelig because you have this gigantic Norseman, but he's goofy and kind. And I loved in the finale that his fondest wish was just being right there with his friends. That was the happiest thing in the world to him. And he's just a very pure character. Penelope wants to steal everything. They never really steal much, nothing of great value, but Biddelig just wants to be around his friends, and he's happy to do that.
Yeah.
You mentioned Alto, who I thought was also wonderful. I love the pretentious actor in him as well. I mean, all of these guys, it's a fun assortment of unique and distinct characters that work well together. So kudos to the writers for making these characters and the actors for bringing them to life. I think they did a really wonderful job with that.
Yeah. And
anyone else that you want to mention?
No, I think that's it. It's like the only one that I guess we didn't get enough time with is, I don't remember her character's name, but Charlene.
Oh, Charlene Yee. Yeah. There's a bit of controversy, as the British say.
To me, it's like I've seen her like when she's with that group before, when she was dating Michael Cera, Jonah Hill,
right? Seth Rogen.
Yeah. The only time I actually found her funny in those like movies that she's done with them was in I think Knocked Up, when she's talking to Katherine Heigl's character about the baby.
Yeah.
And she,
like, feed me, but you have to because we're family. I liked her in This Is 40. I thought she was funny in that.
Man, that movie. I guess I'll watch it again, but I didn't really like it the first time around.
Oh wow, I like that movie a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Paul Rudd. I think Paul Rudd is funny and ageless. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Now, as we mentioned, each episode is pretty much a different setting. They go to South America. They go to New York. They go to a lot of different places. But Carlos, which settings were your favorites out of all the places the Time Bandits went to?
Like, if I had to like gun to my head choose one because I like the first 8 episodes. But choosing time frames, like I had to go with the Mayan one. That's one. The Prohibition era one.
Right, in Harlem.
Yeah, and then what was the other one? One more. I think it was the the one where they go to the desert and they meet the richest man in Egypt.
Right, that's like the Middle East, Africa kind of. They don't really say because they're traveling.
Yeah.
So they could be in any of those regions, but I guess it's almost like the characters where I liked all of them to varying degrees, but the ones that stood out to me were Harlem, like you mentioned. The costumes I thought were fantastic here. If you check that out, and some of the props, like the old classic cars that they had, and I grew up in New York, so New York will always have a special place in my heart. But yeah, I love that they went to Harlem during the Prohibition era and unsuccessfully became, well, I guess
they accidentally successfully became bootleggers.
That's right. Not it wasn't their intent, but they became a successful gang. So good on them. The Ice Age episode, not so much for the setting, but I never in a million years thought of cavemen speaking in modern British slang was a thing, but they had it so Saffron was stuck there, and of course she taught all the cavemen slang.
Yeah.
So you have cavemen being like, "Oi, in it, lol," and it was hilarious. Like I did not. It's a kind of humor I never imagined, but it's also very much in the vein of what I want Jemaine Clement to do. He also wrote a lot of these episodes.
Okay, I didn't look into that, but I'm glad you did because I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I'm even I'm not totally sure he wrote that one, but he had more of a hands-on role in the show than Taika did in general. But yeah, the Ice Age, like cavemen speaking in British slang and internet slang. Funniest thing I never knew I wanted. So
we could have been speaking that much sooner, but those were Neanderthals, so they never actually got to make it.
Maybe that's where it all came from, because there are some people with more Neanderthal genes, and maybe that's where the slangs.
Yeah, maybe that's why the slang sticks a little bit more with those ones with the Neanderthal ones.
I like it. Very plausible explanation. Now, was there anything you didn't like about the show or wanted more of?
I didn't like the parents. I still don't like the parents.
I don't know. Are you supposed to though?
I don't know because like you have, like we mentioned, like you have to have motivation for Kevin. They're your parents, like so you're supposed to have that thing where like I want to save my parents, and eventually like you lose that. Like Kevin loses that for a little bit because then he finds Saf, but then they're like we both have to go and save them.
Right.
And then, I still didn't like that aspect of keeping that, but I understand. And then I still don't like. I know you mentioned Taika as being one of your favorite things, but I did not like him as the Supreme Being.
He was not. I like Jemaine. I was glad they had less Taika than I expected.
Yeah, but like when we watched the movie, like to me, like he was more like gentlemanly.
He was very British.
Yeah, and he like, he's like, yeah, of course I meant for that to happen. What are you talking about? Whereas Taika doing that, it's like kind of like doesn't come off as confident, and it looks more goofy to me. And that's one of the things I didn't really like.
I think that's the problem some people have with his acting is that that's his style in general. What was that movie with Ryan Reynolds with the Free Guy? So he plays a CEO in that, and it's almost kind of the same thing where he's supposed to be the Supreme Being, but he's playing a caricature of the Supreme Being.
Yeah.
Like in Free Guy, he's playing a CEO, but it's more of a caricature of a CEO. But yeah, I agree with you on that totally. And And I hate to dog on Taika because I love so many of his older movies, but I see why some people are getting sick of him.
But it's just like I think someone just needs to be like, hey, just bring it back a little bit, like less you, like maybe 50. We'll go with 50% first, and then we'll see how it goes.
A lot of people said the same exact thing with Love and Thunder, the last Thor movie that he did there. He needed some restraint because a lot of people love what he did with Ragnarok, but Love and Thunder, they thought he just, went off the deep end there. And I sort of kind of agree, maybe not as angrily as our friend Marcus Beer did, but I totally understand the point, and I agree to an extent. One of the things I loved about the 1981 movie were the end credits, which had a song by George Harrison, who is my favorite Beatle. We did not get a George Harrison song here, even though this is all clearly inspired by Monty Python. They give Michael Palin and Terry Gilliam credit in each episode, which is a very cool and classy thing to do because they are two tremendously influential comedians, especially to people in New Zealand, Australia, where they're more influenced by England than America for obvious reasons. But yeah, we could have. The only thing honestly, there's not a lot about this show that bothered me. I mean, yeah, maybe I could have used a George Harrison song and that would have made me happier. But
yeah, maybe could have had Danny dig up something from George's library, something like that.
Oh, that would a Danny Harrison song at the end. That would have been really cool. Good thinking. Yeah. Love that. Now the finale ended. Again, more spoilers here. The Time Bandits outwitted both the Supreme Being and pure evil and came away with the map of the universe, or so they thought. Instead, another rogue of bandits, this time little people, stole the map from the other bandits, and that's how things left off. Now, with that in mind, Carlos, what do you want from season 2 of Time Bandits? Should we get one? Which I can't imagine.
Yeah, we should definitely get one because I do not want to end up like the movie where it just ended with a cliffhanger. Like,
oh wow, yeah. Now that you mentioned, I didn't even think about that. At the end of Time Bandits, his parents are just lumps of coal.
Yeah, and he's just like, "Mom, Dad."
Yeah,
and then it just pans out, and then it goes into the universe of the time map, and that's it. And then
that's a very English way to end a movie, though, or European in general, where American movies are so sometimes ham-fisted, where you have to you can't have a nebulous ending. Which I sometimes, if it's done well, I love nebulous endings where you have to imagine for yourself. But yeah, the movie ended, and I'm like, whoa! And somehow James Bond, who was Agamemnon, became a firefighter. In that.
Yeah, I think it was like, I guess they were trying to make you feel like, yeah, it was a dream, and like it was a very vivid dream. I guess from what I was getting from like watching it over again, and that's why we got like the whole thing,
right?
Of we got Sean Connery and he winks at him and things like that. But yeah, I still don't like the way that ended, just because it's like he got back and then his parents are dead. So now what happens to him?
It's kind of like the ending of Quantum Leap. I'm like, oh, that sucks.
Oh yeah, you tell me about it. I was like, wait, so he just never makes it home? Like never ever.
So for season 2, do you think it'll be the Time Bandits versus the gang of little people who are supposed to be better bandits?
I think what we're gonna get probably is we're gonna get like what they were doing. Like the little people bandits. So and that's my thing. I was gonna say, are we gonna consider them like the original bandits then? Because
I don't know.
We have an open ending with the movie, and this is like a reimagining. So, right. And we're dealing with like time and things like that. And if you go and you change something, in which we have seen in the show, right, when Kevin actually saves his parents because they have that one episode where he does a Back to the Future and he goes back to meet his parents
in the 90s.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was wondering if we'd probably get something where maybe these, because I'm assuming most of those original actors from the first movie are no longer with us.
Right.
So we could probably get something where they could say they were original bandits and that was the map. Because the map looks similar to what we see in the movie. So I like that type of thing, like getting some type of flashbacks. And I think I didn't write it down, but in the movie they were working and they, I guess, helped the Supreme Being create everything.
Yes.
So they would know, like, they would, was it the Land of Darkness or
The Time of Legends?
The Time of Legends, but where they would know how to get in and out to see, what works and what doesn't and things like that. So I
Right.
think we might get something like that, and with the whole plan. I would like to see if Earth 2 ever gets off the ground and how that's gonna come into play. Like, are we gonna be dealing with not only time but multiverses?
Right.
And will we get an appearance by Kevin Prime? That's what I'm calling the first Kevin for the first movie, because the actor's still around doing things.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
Craig Warnick. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, his last thing that he was in the, I guess this is a movie series or something called The Apprentice 2024. And he was in 3 episodes of Ruby and the Well, which is a TV series. So
he has to be in his 50s or 60s now, right?
Let's see here.
Because 1981, he was still young, maybe 9 or 10 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't have a date of birth for this guy on IMDb. So, but yeah, we'll just say maybe he should be like in his late 50s, early 60s.
That'd be very cool to have him come back. I didn't even think of that possibility. But
well, it just came up to me because I'm like, he's working on Earth too, so now we have possibility of multiverses.
I mean, that's the thing with time travel, is that they really can do whatever the hell they want, because any decisions they made in season 1, they could go back a little bit further in time and undo that, make a new timeline, or depending on your theory, it could be the spaghetti theory from the Flash movie. Depends on how you view time travel.
Yeah, physics, it's a hell of a thing to get into once you start figuring everything out. You get headaches once in a while.
Yeah, that stuff's too smart for me. I'll stick with comic books. But yeah, I kind of hope it's kind of similar to season 1 in tone, where it's the Time Bandits trying to outrun the Supreme Being and pure evil. And this time you have a third party where the Time Bandits are going after. So it's like you have it's a 3-way dance in WWE terms. We'll see who gets what. And this time they won't have Charlene Yi quitting to kind of throw a wrench in things. Not faulting her. I don't know what happened with that situation. There's a bunch of accusations, but maybe they'll have a more cohesive cast, giving us more of the people that we loved in all of this. So yeah, I really hope we get a season 2 and it arrives sooner rather than later. Recommendations for Time Bandits. Is it one of your favorite things you watched this year, or what?
It's up there with one, like, if we're thinking about TV series.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that I watch, unfortunately, from my brain. But it is like I would like want to watch this. Why I did start rewatching it, because when I talked to you, I had just finished the movie, and then I was like, okay, let me just get a refresher. On the show again, and I was like, that's when I started noticing the differences. And like I watched like the first 4 episodes, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, yeah. So I dig this. I like the movie's still good. Now, if they can find a way to incorporate the movie into the series, I think it'd just be like one big like
Yeah.
cool universe thing, like to get going there and like kind of make the connection, because it doesn't really like say like go away movie, this is the new
Yes.
hotness. It's still like, brings it in and makes it part of the universe.
Let's call it the Bandits verse, because
Yeah.
everything has a verse now, so we might as well go with that. But yeah, this is for me. It's also up there in one of my favorite things, TV series that I've watched this year. There's been a lot of good stuff too. I mean, The Boys was fantastic. We have Lord of the Rings coming up. Is that next? No, it starts this week,
Yes,
doesn't
yeah,
it?
I would say
Yeah.
there's like early people giving reviews already, I think, for the first two episodes. So
I'm digging what Apple's doing this year. I'm enjoying Bad Monkey way more than I thought I would.
yeah, I never thought that I'd be like, after Vince Vaughn didn't get like a lot of praise for that True Detective season 2,
Yeah.
that even though he was playing like a pimp or a mobster there, but still it's like you're like, okay, well now he's back in another crime type of mystery thing, and he just like, I think it's just him playing himself, and they're like, hey, just be yourself and
Have
pretend you're
fun in
certain.
Miami.
Yeah, you're solving a mystery. You're talking to this what are they called? Morticians? What are they actually called?
Oh,
Medical examiner.
right.
Yeah,
When they work for the police,
yeah,
that's what they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, and you
I was
guys,
going with hot Cuban lady, but you
yeah,
went with her profession, which shows how shallow I am.
you were like, yes, yeah, he's flirting with the eye candy. Yes, got it. No, but yeah, it's been surprisingly good, and it's like I kind of like got the thing that they alluded to, because it's still going, so I don't want to give any spoilers. Kind of figured that kind of thing out. So, and it's weird because it has Peter, and I'm so used to Peter being so lovable, and you're like, man, Peter, you're such an a-hole.
Well, he's being abused and manipulated, so there might be that. Sunny as well. I'm enjoying that. It's not as much as Time Bandits, but it's very unique and weird and
It's
Japanese, and I love it.
Yeah,
So
I don't watch a lot of Japanese stuff. Like, I don't think we get access to enough of that thing from that
yeah,
particular country. Like, if it's not like the TV shows, which is like the only thing that like kind of like made me understand like the latest episode a little bit more. It didn't, like you had mentioned when we were talking in the chat, like it was something that you were familiar with. I was familiar with also just watching TV shows or like the game shows or whatever. So I wasn't that much lost, but I can see how people might like be like, "What the heck is happening?"
Japanese game shows and talk shows are very they're very much a thing. They have the normal one, standard ones that we do over here, but they also have some weird ones where they have people like using a porta potty, but then they move the porta potty and move it into like weird places, like at the bottom of a ski hill or
Yeah,
something.
and then they come out and like, "What the?"
Yeah, they have this one where how how can I put this without just getting censored? Where it's a karaoke competition where the contestant has to finish the song while a woman's hand is pleasuring him. So
Oh,
yeah, so it's a race to see who can finish first. But yeah, so they can get weird like that over there. We don't have those shows over
no,
here.
no.
Um,
I think the closest we get is like, because some of the Spanish ones like you get from like a Telemundo or a Univision have that type of thing where, you know,
Karaoke
the
jerk off show.
no, not the karaoke jerk off. That's like one thing that's not really allowed in like
I didn't think so.
the Latin culture. But like what you mentioned, where like they pull pranks
Okay.
over the porta potty and things like that, or they'll be like some guys walking down the street, and then they'll have like, like the ones that we see now, like in some type of algorithm of Facebook Reels or Instagram Reels, where someone's pretending to be the hot chick, and then the guy's looking, and they're like, you know,
Right.
acting out of control. Someone like that meme where the girls are all offended and things like that. So
sweet. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for our review and discussion of Time Bandits Season 1. Carlos and I both really enjoyed the show and recommend that you watch it. Give it if you don't have Apple TV Plus, sign up for one of those free trials and binge the hell out of everything, including Time Bandits and Ted Lasso. We will be back next week where I actually have no idea what we're going to do. Maybe we'll talk about Sunny. Maybe we'll talk about the start of Rings of Power, but I hope you join us next week. Thank you guys for watching. Leave your opinions on Time Bandits in the comments section, and I'll see you next time on RPadTV. Thanks for watching. Bye.